Good morning, saints. Welcome to this divine moment, a sacred appointment with heaven itself. Today is Friday, the 5th of December, 2025, and I declare that this is a day of victory, abundance, and supernatural favor. As we enter into this early morning prayer, I want you to prepare your heart and your spirit, align your thoughts, lift your hands, and decree over your life what God has already written in the heavens. Today, we declare victory over every challenge, abundance over every lack, and breakthrough over every obstacle. This is your moment to speak life into your circumstances, to command blessings, and to see the promises of God manifest in your day. So lift your voice, believe in your heart, and let's decree, let's declare, and let's receive the fullness of God's goodness over today. Victory is not just a concept. It is a decree, a declaration, and a reality that God has already established for his children. When we speak of victory, we are not speaking about mere survival or temporary relief. We are speaking about the total, complete, and undeniable overcoming of every challenge that attempts to rise against us. Today, as we gather in this early morning hour, we stand on the threshold of a day filled with divine possibilities, a day where every obstacle, every hindrance, and every adversary must bow before the authority of God in our lives. The word of the Lord assures us that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and every tongue that rises in accusation or opposition will be condemned. This promise is not theoretical. It is practical. It is not distant. It is immediate. It is a reality that can be accessed by speaking, decreeing, and standing firm in faith. When you decree victory over every challenge today, you are stepping into a spiritual posture that aligns your spirit with the power of heaven. You are declaring that no matter what faces you, no matter how impossible the circumstances may appear, the outcome is already determined by God's favor and his covenantal promises toward you. To decree victory is to recognize that life will bring challenges. These challenges may come in the form of financial difficulties, relational tension, health issues, or spiritual warfare. Each day, unseen forces attempt to disrupt the plans and purposes that God has for you. Yet, in the quiet of this early morning, you have the authority to speak with a voice of power and command that every challenge, no matter its size or strength, is subject to your decree. There is power in your words, and the moment you speak in faith, the atmosphere around you begins to shift. Mountains that seem immovable are made to move. Doors that seem closed are opened, and paths that seem blocked are cleared by the authority of your spoken word aligned with God's Spirit. Declaring victory is not a passive act. It is not waiting for circumstances to change on their own. It is a bold, intentional act of faith that confronts the reality of struggle with the certainty of triumph. When you decree victory over every challenge today, you are also making a conscious decision to focus on God's strength rather than your weakness. Challenges often try to intimidate us by pointing out what we cannot do or highlighting the insufficiency in our own abilities. But when we stand and decree victory, we are declaring that we are not relying on our own power, our own understanding, or our own resources. We are relying on the omnipotent, omniscient, and ever-present power of the living God. Every difficulty becomes an opportunity for God to demonstrate his greatness. Every setback becomes a stage for his miraculous intervention, and every opposition becomes a canvas for his glory to shine through in our lives. Victory is not conditional upon what you see with your eyes, but upon what you believe in your heart and what you decree with your mouth. The act of declaration releases the power of heaven to intervene in ways that are beyond human comprehension. It is important to understand that decreeing victory is not limited to spiritual battles alone. It is also about practical, everyday triumph. When you face a critical meeting, a challenging project, a difficult conversation, or a tense situation, the same principles apply. Speaking words of authority, aligning your spirit with God's promises, and declaring victory over the situation positions you to walk into that challenge with confidence, courage, and clarity. The challenges that once appeared daunting are now subject to divine intervention. This is why the scripture repeatedly exhorts us to speak life, to speak truth, and to declare the promises of God over our circumstances. Decreeing victory is a conscious act of aligning your earthly walk with the heavenly mandate that God has ordained for your life. Faith and decree work hand in hand. Without faith, the decree may fall on deaf ears, but with faith, your declaration becomes a spiritual force that cannot be ignored. The moment you say, I decree victory over every challenge today, you are engaging your faith in a tangible, actionable way. You are telling the enemy, the circumstances, and even your own doubts that the outcome has been predetermined. You are speaking to the unseen realm with authority and demanding that the natural realm conform to God's divine plan. Every challenge that arises will find its match in the authority of your spoken word, backed by unwavering faith. The spirit of victory recognizes no limitation, no delay, and no impossibility. It operates according to the power of the Almighty God, who is able to turn every situation around for your good. Victory is also a mindset. When you decree victory over every challenge, you are not merely speaking to the external situation. You are transforming your inner spirit. You are training your mind to see obstacles as temporary, trials as teachable moments, and adversities as opportunities for demonstration of God's power. Challenges no longer have the ability to intimidate you, discourage you, or derail you from your purpose. You become a person who walks in confidence because you understand that the battle belongs to the Lord, and your role is to decree, to declare, and to stand firm. Every setback, every opposition, every difficulty becomes an instrument for your growth, refinement, and eventual triumph. The decree of victory transforms fear into faith, confusion into clarity, and despair into expectation. In this early morning hour, when the world is still quiet and the air is filled with possibility, you have the perfect moment to align yourself with heaven. Speak out loud, if possible, your declaration that today victory will manifest in every area of your life, that every plan of the enemy to steal, kill, or destroy will be frustrated, that every obstacle that has delayed your progress will be removed, that every challenge will serve as a testimony of God's faithfulness and power. Understand that your spoken decree carries weight in the spiritual realm, creating a pathway for God's intervention and establishing a framework for tangible results. Your words spoken in faith and aligned with divine purpose are not empty. They are instruments of transformation. Decreeing victory also involves persistence. Challenges may attempt to return, doubts may attempt to whisper, and delays may try to convince you that the promise will not manifest. But the spirit of victory calls for endurance. It calls for continuous declaration. It calls for unwavering faith. Every time you reaffirm your decree, every time you speak life over the situation, every time you remind yourself that the outcome has been preordained by God, you are reinforcing the spiritual authority that brings about the manifestation of victory. Your voice becomes a trumpet in the spiritual realm, announcing that you will not be defeated, that you will not be delayed, and that you will not be denied. Victory is holistic. It covers your spiritual life, your physical life, your finances, your relationships, your work, and every aspect of your existence. By declaring victory over every challenge today, you are positioning yourself to experience breakthroughs in multiple areas simultaneously. You are saying that no part of your life is exempt from God's intervention. No obstacle is too great for His power, and no opposition is strong enough to prevent the fulfillment of His promises. The decree of victory ensures that your day is governed not by circumstances, but by God's authority and your alignment with His word. Abundance is not a distant dream, a wistful thought, or a fleeting hope. It is a divine inheritance, a promise from God, and a reality that belongs to every believer who positions themselves to receive it. To command abundance is to speak with authority over every area of your life where lack has attempted to take hold. It is to declare with boldness and confidence that provision, prosperity, and plenty will manifest in your health, your relationships, your finances, your career, and your spiritual walk. When you rise in the early morning and set your heart to decree abundance, you are aligning yourself with God's supernatural supply, tapping into the limitless resources of heaven, and stepping into a reality where need is replaced with sufficiency and limitation gives way to overflow. Abundance is not simply about wealth or material gain. It is about fullness in every dimension of life, the flourishing of your spirit and the manifestation of God's favor in tangible, life-transforming ways. To command abundance in your life, you must first recognize that God is the source of all provision. He is the one who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, the silver and gold, the treasures hidden in secret places, and the resources that cannot be measured by human understanding. Every good and perfect gift comes from Him, and He delights in supplying the needs of His children. When you speak abundance, you are declaring alignment with this divine principle, acknowledging that your life is under the provision of a God who is generous, faithful, and unlimited in His ability to bless. Every decree of abundance is a declaration of trust, a recognition that you do not need to scramble, hustle, or fear scarcity because the creator of the universe is orchestrating a supply that cannot fail. This act of speaking abundance requires faith, for you are calling into existence what may not yet be visible, and you are activating God's promise through the authority of your spoken word. And when you command abundance, you are also taking authority over the spiritual forces that attempt to withhold provision. Lack, limitation, and poverty are not random circumstances. They are strategies of the enemy designed to hinder your destiny. Every time you decree abundance, you are confronting these forces and declaring that they have no place in your life. You are commanding resources to flow, opportunities to open, relationships to flourish, and doors of favor to swing wide. This is not wishful thinking or passive hope. This is spiritual warfare conducted through words, faith, and alignment with God's principles. Your declaration is a weapon, a spiritual mandate, and a prophetic pronouncement that abundance is your portion, not by chance, but by covenant. Every obstacle that attempts to prevent your overflow is now subject to the authority of your spoken command. Abundance is holistic. It is not limited to financial increase alone, though that is a visible manifestation. It extends to your mental clarity, your physical health, your emotional well-being, your family, and your community. To command abundance is to acknowledge that God's goodness touches every facet of life. When you decree it in the morning, you are setting the tone for your entire day, inviting God's favor to saturate your experiences and opening your eyes to the opportunities and blessings that may otherwise go unnoticed. Every step you take, every decision you make, and every interaction you have is now framed by abundance. Your mind begins to recognize possibilities, your spirit begins to attract favor, and your actions begin to align with divine opportunities. And your actions begin to align with divine opportunity. The declaration of abundance is transformative because it shapes not only what comes to you, but also how you perceive, respond to, and maximize what has already been given. Faith plays a crucial role in commanding abundance. It is the bridge between the invisible promises of God and their visible manifestation. Without faith, words become empty. Prayers lose potency and declarations are void. When you command abundance, you are exercising a faith that refuses to be limited by circumstances, that sees beyond the scarcity of the moment, and that believes in the unchanging character of a God who provides. Faith propels your decree into the spiritual realm, where it engages unseen forces, redirects resources, and creates alignment between heaven and earth. Every utterance of abundance carries authority when it is backed by unwavering belief. And every day in which you speak abundance becomes a field of opportunity for miracles, provision, and divine multiplication. To command abundance is also to cultivate a mindset of gratitude and expectation. Lack often thrives where doubt and worry dominate, but abundance flourishes where faith, thankfulness, and positive expectation dwell. When you declare abundance, you are not only speaking to the universe or the spiritual realm, you are conditioning your own spirit to see, receive, and steward the fullness of God's blessings. Your words shape your perception, and your perception shapes your reality. As you command abundance over your finances, your health, your relationships, and your spiritual life, you are creating a framework in which God's provision can manifest without obstruction. Abundance responds to clarity, alignment, and anticipation, and your decree is the signal that activates both the spiritual and natural channels of provision. Every decree of abundance should also be accompanied by action, obedience, and stewardship. God's blessings often require a response of diligence, responsibility, and alignment with His will. When you command abundance, you are opening the door for opportunities that must be recognized and acted upon. You are declaring that resources will flow to you, and simultaneously, you are positioning yourself to manage, multiply, and distribute those resources for God's glory. Abundance is not hoarded, it is shared, invested, and multiplied. Your declaration becomes a magnet for opportunities, partnerships, and strategies that align with divine prosperity. It calls forth creativity, ingenuity, and wisdom to navigate the fullness that God brings. By commanding abundance, you are inviting God's provision while also preparing your hands, your mind, and your spirit to receive, steward, and expand it. The early morning is a sacred hour for such declarations. It is a time when the world is quiet, distractions are minimized, and the spirit is most receptive. Speaking abundance in the morning sets the tone for the hours ahead, shaping outcomes, influencing decisions, and activating divine favor before the challenges and interruptions of the day can impose themselves. When you rise and command abundance, you are effectively scripting the narrative of your day, declaring that every lack will be replaced with supply, every limitation will be lifted, and every opportunity for multiplication will be realized. Your voice becomes a trumpet of expectation, signaling to heaven that you are ready to receive, ready to act, and ready to live in the fullness that God has ordained. Commanding abundance also shifts the atmosphere around you. Your words carry weight in the spiritual realm, and every time you speak provision, prosperity, and plenty, you are changing the energy that surrounds you. Opportunities begin to appear, resources are aligned, and people and circumstances begin to respond to the authority of your declaration. So the act of commanding abundance is not merely personal. It radiates outward, impacting those around you and creating a ripple effect of favor and increase. It is a spiritual law that aligns your words with your destiny, your faith with God's promises, and your actions with divine orchestration. When you command abundance, you're also declaring victory over limitation, fear, and lack mentality. You are rejecting the lies of scarcity that tell you there is not enough, that opportunities are closed, or that your needs cannot be met. Your declaration announces that limitation has no power over your life, that fear cannot dictate your steps, and that lack is not your portion. Every area of insufficiency is now subject to divine intervention, and your voice becomes a conduit for supernatural provision, spiritual favor, and extraordinary multiplication. You are no longer a passive recipient of circumstances. You are an active participant in the unfolding of God's abundant plan. Favor is not just a chance encounter. It is a divine endorsement, a heavenly alignment, and a supernatural force that propels the life of a believer into unprecedented realms of success, breakthrough, and destiny fulfillment. To release favor is to intentionally open your life to God's divine influence, to invite his hand of blessing over every area, and to position yourself so that doors which are ordinarily closed swing wide and opportunities that are beyond human planning become accessible. Supernatural opportunities are not bound by the limitations of time, space, or circumstance. They arrive when God's timing intersects with human faith, and they manifest in ways that surpass natural expectation. Every believer has been equipped with the authority to release favor, to decree its presence, and to invite God's orchestrations into their lives. When you rise early in the morning and release favor, you are not waiting passively. You are actively speaking into the atmosphere, creating a spiritual magnet that draws blessings, alliances, breakthroughs, and divine connections toward you. Favor is multifaceted. It operates in relationships, finances, career, ministry, health, and personal growth. To release favor is to declare that every interaction, every decision, and every engagement will be governed by God's blessing. Favor ensures that your work is recognized, your efforts are multiplied, and your contributions are rewarded in ways that human effort alone cannot achieve. It is the hand of God that makes the difficult easy, the impossible attainable, and the unseen manifest. When you speak favor over your day, your projects, your meetings, and your encounters, you are establishing an environment in which doors open without struggle, resistance is removed, and divine advantage positions you ahead of obstacles and competitors alike. Favor is a spiritual currency that supersedes human negotiation. It is an unseen force that validates your purpose and elevates your destiny. Supernatural opportunities are the tangible manifestations of favor. They arrive in forms that may be unexpected, unconventional, or unplanned. They present themselves as breakthroughs, installed situations, sudden connections with influential individuals, promotions in areas of effort that have yet to yield fruit, or the opening of platforms that allow you to expand your impact. To release favor is to decree that your life is a fertile ground for these opportunities to take root and flourish. It is an act of faith, a declaration of belief in God's providence, and a conscious decision to walk in alignment with his timing and purpose. Every moment in which you release favor is an invitation for God's intervention, a spiritual handshake between heaven and earth, and a proclamation that your life will be characterized by supernatural provision and influence. Please. Favor also operates in the spiritual realm to neutralize opposition. The enemy often attempts to block opportunities, create delays, and diminish potential. But when you release favor, you are invoking divine intervention that surpasses the limitations imposed by the natural. The strategies of the enemy are rendered ineffective, circumstances shift in your favor, and relationships align with your destiny. Favor removes barriers, creates influence, and amplifies your capacity to succeed. It is not earned through human effort alone, though diligence and integrity are important. It is released through alignment with God, obedience to his word, and the consistent declaration of his promises over your life. To speak favor is to step into authority, to position yourself for divine advantage, and to engage in spiritual warfare that produces tangible results in your life. The act of releasing favor requires intentionality and focus. It is not a casual statement or a fleeting thought. It is a deliberate spiritual exercise in which you decree God's blessing over your interactions, your work, and your endeavors. You are speaking to the heavens and commanding that every encounter, every project, and every opportunity will be accompanied by divine favor. This release of favor transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. Meetings become platforms for advancement, challenges become stepping stones to promotion, and ordinary assignments become avenues for influence and impact. Supernatural opportunities respond to faith, expectancy, and the authority of your declaration, and your spoken word becomes a spiritual lever that moves circumstances into alignment with God's will. Faith is essential in releasing favor and accessing supernatural opportunities. Without faith, words are empty, declarations have no weight, and divine intervention is delayed. When you release favor in faith, You are activating spiritual principles that bring about alignment, recognition, and advancement. Faith propels your spoken word into action in the unseen realm, and it ensures that the opportunities being released are not random but are purposeful and strategic, perfectly timed to fulfill God's plan for your life. The combination of faith and declaration is powerful, producing a momentum that cannot be stopped by adversity, limitation, or human opposition. Every act of releasing favor backed by faith sets in motion a chain of events that lead to unexpected breakthroughs, divine appointments, and life-transforming experiences. To release favor also means cultivating a lifestyle that attracts opportunity. Favor is responsive to integrity, obedience, humility, and excellence. When you live in alignment with God's principles, your life becomes a beacon for supernatural connections and opportunities. It is not enough to speak favor without reflecting God's character in your actions. Every act of diligence, every display of integrity, every demonstration of kindness, and every commitment to excellence positions you to receive the full measure of favor. Favor attracts those who can assist, doors that can advance your purpose, and opportunities that can amplify your influence. It is both a declaration and a lifestyle that produces results beyond what human effort alone can achieve. Releasing favor and commanding supernatural opportunities also involves speaking intentionally over time, relationships, and circumstances. You are inviting God to intervene in the patterns of your life, to redirect situations, and to open pathways that are otherwise inaccessible. Every decree of favor aligns you with God's timing, prepares you to receive blessings, and ensures that opportunities do not pass by unnoticed. The spoken word in this context is not passive. It is an active declaration of God's authority, a spiritual magnet for divine connection, and a prophetic announcement that your life will experience breakthrough. As you rise in the early morning, when the atmosphere is still and the spiritual realm is most receptive, your words carry unprecedented power to shape events, influence outcomes, and position you for divine acceleration. Favor is also a shield and a weapon in times of adversity. It ensures that when challenges arise, there is a divine buffer that protects, redirects, and intervenes on your behalf. Supernatural opportunities often appear in the midst of trials, providing solutions, alliances, and resources that are beyond human comprehension. By releasing favor, you are calling forth these divine interventions, ensuring that your steps are ordered, your path is illuminated, and your destiny remains unhindered. Favor is not dependent on circumstances. It transcends limitations, dissolves obstacles, and establishes your life in alignment with God's purpose. Every decree of favor invites the presence of God to accompany your actions, transform your encounters, and elevate your experience above the ordinary. The release of favor also impacts your influence. As favor surrounds you, doors open for you to minister, lead, create, and innovate. Relationships become strategic, collaborations become fruitful, and recognition flows in ways that propel your mission forward. Supernatural opportunities ensure that your efforts are multiplied, that your impact is amplified, and that the assignments you have been given are fulfilled with excellence. When you intentionally release favor, you are creating a spiritual environment where God's hand of blessing directs your steps, aligns your connections, and produces outcomes that exceed expectation. Favor is both an invitation and a declaration, signaling that you are positioned to walk in divine advantage and that your life will reflect God's abundant goodness. Releasing favor and accessing supernatural opportunities require persistence, intentionality, and expectation. Opportunities may not appear instantly, but the consistent decree of favor ensures alignment with divine timing. The spoken word establishes a spiritual principle that cannot be ignored. a framework in which blessings move toward you, and a pattern in which obstacles are neutralized. Favor operates in seasons, cycles, and patterns designed by God, and your declarations synchronize your life with these divine rhythms. Each time you release favor, you are reinforcing your position in the spiritual realm, attracting supernatural provision, and setting the stage for divine appointments that advance your destiny. Chains are not always visible, yet they bind, restrain, and limit the full expression of God's purpose in a person's life. Obstacles can appear as circumstances, relationships, financial limitations, emotional struggles, or even spiritual attacks that attempt to slow down or stop the progress that God has ordained for you.